everyone, and welcome back to our podcast on anxiety. This will be session 4. And as always, please note that I'm a quantum life consultant. I'm not a medically trained professional doctor. Should you display any worrying symptoms, please visit a doctor to assist you. This podcast is not for diagnosis or for treatment. Okay, let's get started. So let's do a quick recap of session 1, 2, and 3. Anxiety is a response. It's a response to what? Stress, environment, lifestyle, our epigenetic markers. The response happens in the place of a fight, flight, and freeze reaction. And prolonged exposure to this reaction will then cause an amygdala hijack, which will then cause anxiety that either comes from the womb, babies, toddlers, children. If you do not deal with it, grown-ups. Okay, so let's move forward. What do you need to avoid if you are someone that is anxious, or your child is anxious, or your spouse is anxious? Okay, so first of all, you need to avoid high sugar foods. In general, just even if you don't have anxiety, avoid them. Okay, so the high sugar foods really are crippling to your body and to your mental health. Finding your triggers. You need to find, what about this situation actually made me anxious? And you need to communicate them to people so that people are aware to either avoid the triggers if they are the ones creating the triggers, or to help you when they see, oh, someone else is doing this thing that's triggering you, so that they can help you through it. You need to focus on what you can control. A lot of people get anxious about things that are so out of their control. And so if you cannot control the situation, being anxious about it will definitely not help. And not sleeping when you have the opportunity to do so. You need to sleep 8 hours a night. And if you need, take an afternoon nap. That is fine. You need to do what you need to do to cope. Then doing everything yourself to the extent where you burn out. Okay, so you need to avoid doing everything. This is where we get, especially the perfectionism personalities, they tend to do everything. They're also at work, the people, if something needs to be done, they put their hands up, and then in the end, they sit with everything on their plate, and they cannot get to everything, they cannot deal with everything, and that then becomes a trigger to them. Unhealthy diets. Guys, if your child is struggling with any physical symptom or ailment or anxiety, unhealthy diet is probably contributing to that, between 80 and 90%. You need to eat healthy. You need to look after your well-being. Okay, then food that you need to avoid when you suffer from anxiety is GMO products, processed dairy, things that are not organic or free range. You need to avoid them. You also need to avoid alcohol. Okay, so triggers, knowing your triggers and avoiding your triggers. A lot of people are triggered by their own thinking, overthinking the situation, overthinking what happened now, what could have been, what could have happened, what could have been said. Stop thinking, and sometimes just try, and even if you have to put on for that moment, and this is not an avoidance method, this is a coping method. If you need to just quickly switch your focus to looking at something, say you have a mug, looking at the mug, thinking, okay, this mug has green on it, it has white on it, it's quite a big mug. I hold it like this, and just saying to yourself, okay, think about something else. Another thing that's an amazing tool that I use is when I tend to overthink something, I say, I take this thing that I'm thinking about and I'm throwing it out of my mind. I throw it out of my memory field. I no longer want to think about it. Sometimes I have to throw 3 or 4 times. And sometimes you cannot do it immediately because you might be in a conversation or something. Just excuse yourself and go to the bathroom and throw out these overthinking things. Another trigger is toxic people, especially if you are surrounded by people that are either narcissistic or have narcissistic traits, or people that are abusive, psychopaths, high-functioning sociopaths, and narcissists are often the one leads into the other. And just people that you feel like, it's just always draining you, especially if you are already triggered. Don't go into an environment where you feel unsafe. Examination periods for children and grown-ups are big triggers. Reminders of past traumas, being confronted with a person from your past that is connected, even if it is just in the furthest way possible to your trauma. Places where you feel trapped, Large crowds often are triggers for people, especially with social anxiety. And then family, especially if the family is where the abuse took place, if the abuse came from your home, being around your family can trigger you. Also, just growing up with people and siblings, we are all different, and so we might trigger each other in any way because we are just different, and so that might also cause some anxiety. Okay, so let's say now you are anxious. You say to me, Natanya, my child is now anxious. It's too late to stop. The triggers are there, everything's there. It's what do I do now? And the anxiety just gets worse and worse and worse. So your first line of defense as a spouse or as a parent or as a caring friend is to get them to communicate. You need to get them to talk them through the situation. What triggered you now? Why are you anxious? What is making you feel anxious? What is making you feel worried? What are your concerns? And remember, when someone communicates it to you, the last thing you need to say in that moment is, oh no, man, it's not that bad. Or, oh no, man, stop it. Pull yourself together. Okay, those are toxic reactions and toxic positivity, and it will not help. Okay, you need to help the person to breathe. If they are having a panic attack, breathing in through the nose, holding in their breath, and then breathing out. Breathing in through the nose. The reason you breathe in through the nose is it slows your heartbeat and it slows your breathing patterns so that you don't feel that panic attack feeling on your chest and the palpitations. Focus on something else. Like I said, the mug, just switch their focus for a moment to think about something else or to think about the reality. Let's say you're dropping your child off for a sleepover. Your child that you drop off is scared that something will happen to them while they are away. They get getting panicky. Then you say to them, okay, but let's think about the reality of this. I have a cell phone and you have a cell phone. So you can just phone me anytime. I promise I'll keep my phone on. Or let's say someone is anxious about the results of a paper. Okay, I understand that you're anxious. I would also be anxious. Your whole life's future depends on the marks of this paper. But you know what? You already wrote the paper. So there's nothing you can really do about it now, but accept whatever has already been done. Or, let's see, what can you control? Let's say this is before writing the paper. Let's make sure that you study enough. Let's make sure that you have an appointment with the lecturer or the teacher for an extra lesson. Let's make sure that you watch YouTube videos on the matter, what's currently going on in the current affairs, and make sure that you focus on what you can control and what is real. Okay, then obviously, to find the trigger, if you're already aware of the trigger, that the trigger for the anxiety has already been triggered, get the person away from the trigger. If the trigger for anxiety is a dog, then lock the dog away. Don't keep the person around the dog. Get them away from the dog. Okay. Try to focus on what is the evidence. A lot of things, like I said, we think ourselves into anxious situations. And so we need to ask ourselves, is there any evidence that this person is mad at me except for the fact that they've read my message and have not replied? No. So let's assume the best and let's just hope this person is really busy. And this has happened to me so often. When you message someone and they read it and they don't reply. Sometimes they were busy replying, someone phoned them and they just went on with their day. Okay, so they must also ask themselves, is this the truth? Is the anxious feeling that I'm having, is it a truth or is it just my experience? Just because it's your experience doesn't mean it's invalid. It just means that it's not the truth. So you need to switch your focus to the reality. Focus on what is going to plan. So if things are getting out of control and you need to meet a deadline and everything's going wrong, focus on what has been working and what is currently working. You can always do a happy song and a happy dance. This is amazing to do with children. Help children to go to a happy place, talk them into a place where I'm calm, I'm grateful. Look at this house that we have. You have your own room. You have a bed. Focus them on things that are happy. PMR is progressive muscle relaxation, tension. That's why hugs help. Doing clenching exercises with your toes and your hands also help. And validate their feelings. Even if you don't understand why they're anxious and you think to yourself, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard, you need to validate their feelings because their experience is real. Okay, so that's when people are already in anxiety. Let's say you're not anxious, you're calm. How do you maintain that calm feeling? Do you need to point out progress? Tell your spouse, I'm aware, do you realize that you haven't been anxious in a week? I'm so proud of you. Control your thoughts. I'm so sorry if you're hearing the lightning. The weather is coming closer. Control your thoughts, okay? Make sure that if you start going into a trigger pattern of thoughts, stop it immediately. Have self-control over your thoughts. You can do that. Okay, then ask yourself, is this realistic? Is this way out thing that I'm scared will happen? Is it a realistic thing? Keep to a routine. Wake up a certain time of the day and go sleep a certain time of the day. The best thing is to be in bed by 9, sleep before 10, wake up between 5 and 6. That's the best routine you can keep. And then validate feelings again and confront the fears in controlled situations. If you are scared of dogs, then maybe introduce the child to a puppy first, because a puppy will not bite. Okay, so you cannot avoid all of your triggers. You cannot avoid all of the situations where you are anxious in, but you can expose yourself in a controlled way to the situation. Avoidance is not the answer for everything. Going to school is an anxious situation. Does that mean I must now stop going to school? No, of course not. You need to find out what about school makes you scared and confront that aspect little by little, step by step. Okay, thank you so much for this session and joining me. I appreciate it so much. And then I hope you have a lovely day and I see you next time.